Winston is absolutely shocked that the chair of the Federal Reserve would accuse the White House
there's an argument that they may be a bit overstated
of manipulating numbers, or if you take the words of Edward Snowden, cooking the books. And there is more to this, and it's incredibly important that you understand this so you make the right investments decision this year. Of course, this is not financial advice, just what Winston just came up with. But let's get serious here. So yes, Edward Snowden tweeting today that the chairman of the Federal Reserve has publicly accused the White House of cooking the books on employment numbers. Now, is he right? Is he wrong? Well, if you've been following me for a little while, you know I've been covering this for like over a year. And the truth is that there is a massive gap between the White House numbers, which are based on the establishment survey, and then there is the household survey, which shows massive job losses, while the White House proclaims massive job gains. How does that work? Why does it matter? And how is it going to affect your portfolio? That's what I want to walk you through. Now, if you don't care about any of this, there is only one thing I would care about: the earnings and the margins of the greatest companies in the world. And I'm going to give you the full benchmark of every S&P 500 company, including the most recent data from the earnings just out. Just head over to felixfriends.org/SP500 and download it. I do this once a quarter to give you access to the data that you deserve. felixfriends.org/SP500. It's free. So what have I got here? I've got the government's numbers. Let's just call them the Biden numbers to wind up a few people. And honestly, all presidents are about as bad as each other, in my view, pretty much everywhere in the world. And then we've got the, well, employment numbers. And how do you compare that? How do you come up with Biden's payroll number? So the government is claiming there are 9 million more jobs than those who are employed, which seems a little peculiar, doesn't it? How do they do that? Well, they basically make adjustments, very large adjustments. And through that birth-death model, they've added 1.9 million jobs, which is about 56% of all the jobs created. And that is based on the assumption that a certain number of businesses were generated and employed a certain number of people. They're all assumptions made up in a spreadsheet and are not based on any real world data. So if you look at last month's number, we lost 625,000 full-time jobs, and we gained 286,000 part-time jobs. That's actually what happened in May. Now, the government somehow created 400,000 jobs out of that. Don't ask me how they come up with that maths, but the reality is a much softer jobs market. And if you look at the Biden quote here, there is an argument that payrolls may be a bit overstated. And the word overstated is not one he uses very lightly or very frequently. So what does it mean? Well, the Fed has two mandates: an employment mandate. They should generate full employment, and then they should also create low inflation, or price stability, as they call it. Now, the two are typically in complete contrast to one another. So the problem has been what? The problem has been we don't have low inflation, we have high inflation. How do you fix a problem like high inflation? Well, you destroy jobs. And by destroying jobs, people have less money to spend. So there is less money going around because people are not getting paid. And therefore, what happens? They spend less, and therefore companies start to cut their prices, and then inflation goes down and we're back to low inflation. That is very much the playbook of the Fed, and they achieve that through raising interest rates. That's what makes people tighten their belt. That's basically the round robin thing that the Fed's got going on. So if indeed the job numbers are overstated, then the Fed has all the reasons it needs to now cut interest rates. And the beautiful thing when you cut interest rates, what happens? What happens in the economy? There are two things that happen. Companies invest more. because it's now cheaper. The consumer has more dosh because credit card bills are going down, the car loans are going down, mortgages are getting cheaper. So these guys therefore spend more. And where do they spend the company? Well, the money, well, it ends up through shops, basically over here with companies. So companies are now getting more revenue, more profits, and at the same time, Wall Street, what does Wall Street do? Wall Street says, we love stocks. Why do they do that? Because there are two places that Wall Street essentially invests. One are bonds and one are stocks. And bonds pay an interest rate, right? Now, when interest rates drop, bonds are less appealing. Therefore, the money flows into stocks, which are now comparatively more appealing. So stocks go up, bonds go down, and we all live happily ever after. So we are gunning for rate cuts. Now, the Fed is telling us they're not going to cut until maybe once or twice towards the end of the year. Do I believe them? I don't. I think this is a game plan to make sure that inflation is stubbed out, snubbed out, and strangled. Because they're concerned that the 1970s might be relived here, where they cut rates too early, like 2 or 3 times in a row. So they were going to wait a little bit. I suspect that by September, we're going to get ourselves some rate cuts, and that'll be a very, very nice thing for the market. The one thing that'll make money regardless are the best companies in the world, and you can get yourself hands on my benchmark of every one of those best companies in the world. Just go to felixfriends.org/sp500. I love you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, share it with somebody you care about, and I hope to see you on the next one. There's a great channel out there called New Money, and he's just put out a video saying the 5 most bought stocks by the top 80 super investors. And I'm sure a lot of people are therefore going to jump on those and going to hit the buy button for those 5 stocks. And I want to give you my perspective here as a former banker.